Versatility, the name of the game for eUnited so far in the fall split of Season 4. Let's see what type of playstyle they go for in game number 2 here, as Allegiance really needs some points. Their standings right now not looking particularly sharp.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Allegiance not let PandaCat have that Jing again. I think a huge issue that kept shining time and time again was just how much survivability PandaCat had on that Jing between the extended dash off of the knockup and her ultimate. It just seemed practically impossible for even Weekend on Circuit to keep up.
It's true. I mean, Weekend got into that backline so many times, and how many times did you see a little Jing floating away with the last breath icon ticking down on her? Most hunters fall in those sorts of scenarios. As eUnited now in the first pick position, ban Cullen and Osiris, 2 warriors away from CycloneSpin, something that solo laner has had to deal with throughout his career, basically, is targeted bans at his god pool. And this time it's eUnited's turn to pick up the Artio, so they get the win against it. And NeiruMah did well on it, but I don't know about you, Taco. I know Twitch chat's gonna be mad, but that didn't seem like a god that was doing crazy things the whole time. That seemed like a good support.
I think I would have preferred to see it not be on NeiruMah to play that Artio for the support role. I don't feel as though NeiruMah was able to do what he wanted to accomplish, and it became very evident early on that NeiruMah wasn't going to be able to get off any of that early pressure that you kind of anticipate from an Artio to have. I just feel as though when it comes to the support role and Artio, she's kind of lackluster there in comparison to the others.
Well, now we're going to see her in solo lane because eUnited picked up Ganesha for PolarBearMike, Raijin again for Venenu. Allegiance, they answered with Ratatoskr and Erlang Shen, taking away some of the gods that eUnited just played on the right side of the map in the first game. And this time, it's going to be Scylla for Oceans in that mid lane. Oceans looked pretty good in that game, stayed safe, put out decent damage. This is we are setting up for Ocean's composition already. 2 knockups, a root from long range as well from Erlang Shen. This is already enough setup for Scylla in my mind.
This is also kind of an anti-Raijin composition already. The Scylla having a really easy time inside of that ultimate, punishing Raijin anytime he's looking to go into those taiko drums. And with that in mind, Venenu is going to have to be on point with his positioning before he opts to try and launch off the damage from his ultimate.
Circuit and Awilish focusing out Scream and a couple of gods he's had success with so far during this fall split. Terra and Sylvanas taken away from NeiruMah. Cernunnos, the selection for Metyankey, a god that is starting to see some more play, and deservedly so. Still a very strong hunter.
A very strong hunter indeed, but the same could be said for Camazotz as well.
I wouldn't call Camazotz a strong hunter. I know I've seen you troll your ranked games with Camazotz hunter.
That's not a troll. That's actually a legitimate strategy. Everything is viable there, but this isn't ranked. This is competitive, and it is going to be PandaCat running things back on the Jing. That's kind of terrifying to see.
No bans. There's 2 jungler bans, as we mentioned, and Jing the pick for PandaCat, who carried on it in the last game. No doubt about that. Geb, the last pick here for Allegiance. A little bit more late game oriented with this composition. Ratatoskr and Erlang Shen great in the early stages, but in terms of the mid lane and the duo lane, Allegiance looking a little bit more late game here.
Allegiance want to keep the late game in mind, but they've got to be careful not to fall victim to the early. They don't really have anybody who can kind of put any pressure out other than maybe Cyclone on that Erlang, but I would still lean towards favoring the Camazotz and even Benji on that Artio to have some of that lane pressure established.
So you were a little underwhelmed by Artio in the support role. How do you feel about her in solo? Is she a top tier contender there?
A little bit more efficiency, I think, and a little bit more... for Artio, you kind of just want to allow her to acquire as much farm as possible for really having to worry about rotating over. Allegiance tried to give NeiruMah that solo lane farm in the duo lane, but unfortunately eUnited just a complete counter to that strategy, starting off with PolarBearMike in the duo lane. This time around, he's in mid.
Well, plenty of push power in mid. That's why we see him there between the Ganesha and the Raijin. It's pretty much instant clear on that mid wave, and this gives them the opportunity to rotate to the right-hand side of the map and assist on any invade potential that we may have seen from Allegiance with that Erlang Ratatoskr in the early game, though. Pretty tough to face off against Artio and Camazotz, even with Ratatoskr Erlang, as eUnited clean up the fire elementals, get that first neutral objective. A little bit less tanky than the Oracles and a little bit easier to confirm as well. So that's why we see most teams go for the right side neutral objectives instead of the left side in the early game.
Clear already in favor of eUnited. Scream getting out a little bit of poke on the CycloneSpin. Not too much to really be concerned about just yet. Oceans and NeiruMah trying to secure these left mid Harpies. Great knockup by NeiruMah, stopping PolarBearMike from trying to steal those away.
But that let Venenu get a solo wave in mid, and now here comes PolarBearMike on the backside just to help clear this out as quickly as possible. That's going to instant clear this wave as PBM finds the stun and knockup onto Oceans. No real follow-up there is to be expected. Metyankey is getting the better end of the clear in the dual lane early. How's this matchup for Cernunnos? It seems like one that can go either way.
It's certainly one that can go either way, but for the early laning phase, at least levels 1 through 5, Cernunnos probably going to be a little bit more in favor there. Jing Wei not really having a whole lot of boxing potential until she finishes off the Ninja Tabi, Warrior Tabi, Devourer's Gauntlets. You need at least 1 or 2 items online before you really start seeing Jing Wei players try to make that aggressive pathing.
And I believe PandaCat started off with the Devo Gloves rush last game, waiting to get his boots in that second item slot, which I think is a little bit, it just smooths out your curve a little bit better in my mind, but there is some merit to going for the boots first, especially on a god like Jing Wei that can rotate to right side of the map fights, as we saw PandaCat do consistently during game 1, gives you a little bit more mobility in that sense. Whereas most hunters want to go for boots first just because it takes them so long to get back to lane if they back without any sort of extra movement speed.
For competitive, I would say you see a lot of hunters opting for those boots because they want the mobility for surviving any early ganks that might be coming their way. Dual lane has kind of just been accustomed to being more of solo island, and with that in mind, most players can start getting a little bit lax towards junglers making their way over to that dual lane, looking for those early ganks that we used to see quite a lot. And so with this slight shift in the meta, wouldn't be too surprised to start seeing that start resurfacing.
Well, Metyankey certainly no stranger to getting ganked in the dual lane early. It's happening to him a lot in game number 1, though on a much safer god this time in the Camazotz. The Wild Hunt doesn't help you much against Camazotz, who can just go up into the sky very quickly and avoid that Cernunnos ultimate, which does have a decent casting time, as the United start to set up for a speed buff invade. Ratatoskr is here without the boots completed, where oh god, I did it. I said rat boots. He doesn't buy boots, he just buys the acorn.
He'll have his not online pretty soon, and then once that is finished off, he'll be good to go. And PandaCat actually trying to get a bit of a cheeky invade going here. NeiruMah, though, getting a little bit frisky as well, and that is going to actually be in favor of eUnited on that red buff.
Critical that Allegiance get that red buff, because otherwise Weekend would have been stuck at level 4. Wouldn't have been able to use that ultimate aggressively to go in on the 2v1. Doesn't find the purple buff, still secured by eUnited, and loses his purification beads for it. So not necessarily the gank that Weekend wanted there. As here comes Scream around the backside. He's going to meet 2 members. Jumps over the root from Metyankey nicely. This is a matchup for the Ratatoskr in the dual lane that is not as favorable. We saw how excellent the Ratatoskr ganks can be in game number 1, with Scream constantly ganking the AMC. Against Jing Wei, just use agility after the knockup and Rat kind of saves your life sometimes.
I actually just realized it was actually Metyankey who stripped away that red buff on the invade. So it was ALG being successful, I believe, in securing that red.
Good stuff out of Allegiance, and trying to get Metyankey a better start than he had in game number 1. The start was okay for him, I suppose, but never got a chance to really get the ball rolling because Scream paid a lot of attention to him. But this time, Benji has had a much better laning phase. Last game we were 3 minutes away from him losing his tower. Hasn't had a lick of damage on it quite yet. That's what you expect from Artio in the early game. Not the usual Guardian that we see in solo, that we expect to get out pushed by a warrior, really looking more towards the team fight. Artio can box in lane, can out-clear warriors, and then come in and make a big impact in the team fight.
And that cripple also stops at 72 transformations in the works, which is probably one of the main reasons why we're not seeing too much aggression out of CycloneSpin in that lane either.
Scream looking for Weekend underneath that tower, but Weekend still safe for the moment. No purification beats for Legion's jungler, but still has that ultimate available as Scream looks to just regen off of these mid lane creeps. One of the things that makes Camazotz so potent is that ability to stay healthy in the midst of these team fights.
And Scream as well kind of just keeps pathing around to that backside. Weekend, though, finally able to catch him out. Dharmic Pillar is going to buy Scream a little bit of time. He does have his ultimate available should Weekend look to land on him, but he's opting to hold it off for now.
Really trusting that Devour is coming out on time, and it does. Scream avoids an ultimate without committing one of his own, but now Benji's in a bad spot. Everyone surrounding him, 4 members collapsing in on eUnited solo laner. Gets the dash off, and it's Scream who finds the first blood somehow. Ocean's the first to fall. Benji's still alive, trying to get away. There goes the Cataclysm, and not enough damage. Benji somehow escapes. Wow. Talk about team synergy. Everyone comes to the rescue for Benji. And Oceans, who was just trying to get a little measly first blood for himself, takes half his health in the blink of an eye.
The shell, the peel, everything about that was just beautiful by eUnited. More particularly, PolarBearMike coming up huge with this Ganesh, completely preventing anybody from collapsing any further onto his solo laner.
Metyankey drops the ultimate to try and protect the red buff, but it still goes eUnited's way. Love the play there from PandaCat. He actually pulled the red out of range of that Wild Hunt to make sure that it went going blue for eUnited. Venenu completely out of mana, and NeiruMah recognizes it. He's going to step in and try and harass the enemy mid laner off of his own red buff, but PandaCat and the rest on the way as Venenu manages to secure the buff for PandaCat.
And that was first blood for Scream. And now just look at that level disparity between Scream and Weekend, all off of basically that one play. Weekend was already trailing a little bit further behind Scream, but it's pretty clear that when it comes to jungle pressure, Camazotz still taking the lead over this Ratatoskr.
And this is no surprise for me because Scream, one of the more selfish junglers in terms of farm, and I don't mean that in a negative way. There are junglers that want to stay, are willing to fall a little bit behind, and Weekend is definitely one of those. If it gives Weekend, or it gives Oceans a slight lead, CycloneSpin a slight lead, Metyankey a slight lead, Weekend's willing to miss a wave here and there. Scream, like a lot of junglers, is not. And so that's why you see Scream a little bit ahead, but First Blood also a big part of that, and just more efficient farming outright from eUnited's jungler, who's had an excellent fall split. No surprise to see him have another good start to this set.
And again, Oracle Vision going the way of eUnited just means that that side of the map's going to be relatively safe, but PandaCat's already pretty safe from the Ratatoskr. Typically, you're looking for some follow-up off of that knock-up in the Rat ult, but Jing Wei, if there's one thing she can get away from, it's those knock-ups.
That's right. Just use that agility to get away and not worried about that through the Cosmos ultimate. So PandaCat usually can't play up against Rat, but can in this lane, given the opportunity. And as we mentioned, he went for the Devourer's Gauntlet Rush as he did in game number 1, whereas Metyankey went for the Ninja Tabi right away. As we mentioned, a lot of hunters like to do at a competitive level, but this is where that power spike really favors the hunter that went for Devo Gloves right away. He's got 50 stacks, whereas Metyankey's just starting. CycloneSpin had to use the ultimate. It's already very low. Well-timed stun as the dive is on. Scream up into the air. Benji looking for it, but Scream can't find it. Good timing on the 72 transformations. Gets CycloneSpin out of danger, but I don't know if anyone can save his tower from the danger of 2 members of eUnited pushing it down.
Well, NeiruMah is going to maybe look to try, but not sure this Geb's going to have enough wave clear to really defend this one. eUnited, though, concerned about that possible rotation from maybe Ocean since he is missing from the mid lane, not certain if he's lurking around that jungle or not. And Weekend and Oceans, I think, both kind of just trying to wait things out, see if they need to ult on over to the solo lane side or not.
Venenu tried to steal away speed, but it still goes Weekend's way. CycloneSpin returns and puts some pressure back onto Benji. Benji willing to return it right back as Scream off the mark on both his 1 and his 2. Which means CycloneSpin not under any pressure anymore on this right-hand side. Both solo laners have gone for items that reduce their opposition's power. It's Runic Shield for CycloneSpin. That means Benji and Venenu and PolarBearMike going to be doing less damage. And then it's the Jade Emperor's Crown for Benji on the Artio to make sure that all the physical members of Allegiance won't do quite as much.
Kind of just an even trade-off. It's going to be mostly about that team follow-up synergy to see who's going to have the upper hand when the team fights start breaking out. And so far, so good for eUnited. Actually managed to build up a little bit of a gold lead and some experience lead. But again, a lot of that XP lead kind of just riding off of the jungle disparity. 2
levels right now in the jungle. Also about a level in solo, level in support as well. Venenu, I believe, with a small experience advantage over Oceans, though not enough to give him a level differential. As now that the Portal Demon has spawned, less focus will be paid to the right side of the map and more to the left, with Oracles and Gold Fury being the main objectives that most teams will worry about at this point in the game. Neither team with an insanely good objective burn composition, but I'd say that Allegiance can do the Gold Fury a little bit faster than eUnited can, just because Cernunnos with that heavy glaive passive does excellent damage to the Gold Fury.
Well, one thing that eUnited has to keep in mind is that Oceans has much better secure when it comes to those global objectives, and now it's actually going to be Weekend taken up into the sky, looking to go down onto PandaCat. Excellent silencer from PolarBearMike to really stop any further ingressing, but PandaCat, he's looking to go in all the way.
NeiruMah survives low HP. There's the knock-up on a Metyankey. He takes a bunch of damages. Venenu's looking for the damage with the Taiko drums. NeiruMah's stuck behind the tower, and Venenu bangs it home. Number 2 for eUnited as Benji blinks into the back line, interrupted by that Anchile from Weekend. Not enough for Benji to find the kill. Taunted underneath that tier 2 tower, which he has tanked up forever, but still staying alive. Level 13, plenty of extra defense for the solo laner. Still able to escape. You've got to be kidding me. That Artio has escaped with very low HP twice now. And all the while Allegiance is worried about the big scary bear between their towers and mid lane, PolarBear and PandaCat and Scream, they did the Gold Fury.
And that's all that they needed to happen from Benji. Excellent distraction factor coming through by eUnited solo laner. And again, I really can't believe that he's managing to escape twice now with very similar low HP.
Between the two escapes, he probably lived with a collective 70 health. 50,
I'm gonna go with 50.
50, 75 health. A low number. Very low in terms of HP. A Scream blinks onto Oceans. Heartseeker as well. Look at that damage onto Oceans. 80% gone in the blink of an eye.
He didn't even have a chance to try and counterplay against that. It's just one of those surprising factors that Camazotz, you build up those stacks on the Heartseeker and you just start to chunk away entirely. Weekend, absolutely nowhere left to go, completely burst out.
PolarBearMike with the silence setting up Scream and Venenu for that damage, preventing the dash from Weekend, who either didn't have the purification beads up or didn't think he needed them. Either way, he needed something if he wanted to survive that, as Scream has been playing up in Allegiance's face all game long. He's been in the enemy jungle consistently. Here, willing to just take some extra damage on the NeiruMah. This is typical Scream.
That's just what you expect. Doesn't even bother finishing the back, just wants to show that he can do whatever the hell he wants. And I mean, that's just the fact of things right now. Scream and the rest of eUnited as a whole, honestly, there's really not much that they can't do right now. And the ALG have just been absolutely struggling with trying to keep up. And this has been a bit more controlled pacing by Allegiance after that initial first blood that Scream was able to collect in the solo lane and Benji's first great escape. It seemed as though Allegiance managed to slow down that pacing of the game. Important, but now eUnited are kicking it back up a notch. And
Allegiance have the excellent late game. If they can get there, they've got plenty to offer in terms of the Geb, the Scylla, the setup for Oceans on the Scylla, even Metyankey in the late game. Cernunnos excellent in the later stages because of that ultimate really making a difference in team fights, but you got to worry about getting there first, and they're down about 5,000 gold right now to eUnited at the 15-minute mark. XP not bad. Usually with a 5,000 gold lead, you see XP a little bit more tilted in one team's favor. 7,000's a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's still doable for Allegiance as Metyankey decides to back up with Scream on the way. Blink is there. Age is a little bit late for Metyankey, and he's toast this time. Bat out of hell. PandaCat's going to clean it up. He gets his first of the game. So Weekend's trying to respond. Two-man knock-up. Scream uses the purification beads to get away. There's the heal coming out from the vampiric bats off of NeiruMah, and Scream's going to be able to get out of there. Meanwhile, Weekend gets soloed down by PandaCat, and NeiruMah's next on the menu for eUnited. Knocked up and controlled. Venenu gets a double. 6 clean for eUnited.
And it's going to be the T1 tower to fall next for Allegiance. That one being a nice 500 gold added into the pockets for eUnited. And now Scream just slurping up that blood, getting all that health regen back.
Oh, Oceans. Oh, no, buddy. You got to run away. Venenu is going to help him get back to the fountain a little bit quicker than he may have been ready for. The synergy between Screammmmm and Benji is very, very clean. That's multiple times now that we've seen that barrel roar that's a quick stun set up for a vampiric bat that's already on the way. These two have worked together flawlessly thus far.
Blink Camazotz as well is also just pretty devastating, especially when he's able to build up a lead for himself. And that's kind of the case here for Screammmmm. Having that Heartseeker, he's really just been abusing as much of his lead as possible.
PandaCat almost stopped CycloneSpin's back, but just a little bit short. I love what the itemization that PolarBearMike has gone for in this support with the Emperor's Armor early on. There's an item that's excellent when your team begins to siege or begins to defend sieges, and I don't think United's going to be defending against a siege anytime soon, but certainly looking to knock down those towers quickly as the Dharmic Pillars come down, trying to find NeiruMah. United was on the Portal Demon, but not enough damage for them quite yet. Nice two-man route there by CycloneSpin. Airstrike up over the top. Venenu comes crashing down as well, and Screammmmm gonna find another quick kill. Again, able to escape on low HP. That's been the MO for United so far in this game. Ocean's looking for anybody with that I'm a Monster. Finds two, but immediately responded with a lot of damage. Got a little bit off of himself, but almost finds a kill, almost finds two. PandaCat almost falls. PolarBearMike's gonna get cleaned up here by Weekend, but Venenu's gonna fall to CycloneSpin. Screammmmm returns, but looking for that Devour, can't find it. Bat out of the hell and just needs one shot to clean up Weekend. Benji still here. Big heal off of that Druid 1 that provides it to Screammmmm, who's standing in 3 pools, and his health bar is just going up and up. Metyankey is going down and down. Screammmmm turns around and finds another.
And Screammmmm still getting all of that health regen, now focusing on the CycloneSpin alongside of Benji. Cyclone trying to use that turtle form from the 72 transformations to get away. Same cannot be said though for NeiruMah. Forced to pop his sprint, just looking for the escape, looking to go anywhere. The CC rollout actually going to save his life.
Screammmmm just couldn't get in position to body block away that rollout. Either way, man, that healing from Camazotz in those pools, 3 stacked on top of one another. That's the stuff right there if you're a Camazotz. This PandaCat's gonna find a quick little gold fury for United. They needed some more gold, you see. They needed at least to be up about 10,000, and after this Portal Demon, they should be up by that amount.
And there might be vision there for Allegiance, but NeiruMah, don't really see him preventing this one from happening. Tried to steal it away with that knockup, but just out of range. PandaCat, though, a little bit of trouble, but he's level 18. Oceans is 13. Weekend is 13. Both of them still not enough to try and stop PandaCat.
PandaCat taking the 2v1 will fall, but Venenu comes in and cleans up what PandaCat started. 1 for 1. 3 ultimates used to bring down PandaCat, who didn't have any relics available. So a small win for Allegiance that really does shut down a lot of what eUnited can push with, either in terms of towers or objectives, but still not great as CycloneSpin's locked between a couple members, gets the shield from NeiruMah and that heal coming from the 9 turns blessing. Venenu can't finish him off with the ultimate, but will do so with the percussive storm. Screammmmm on the run, finding Weekend. Another easy kill for eUnited. Now 6 in total for Venenu, as Metyankey shows up and is immediately met by a blink in from Screammmmm. Gonna get rooted out by Benji. The Allegiance conveyor belt is working full force in game 2. 15 kills in 19 minutes for eUnited.
Screammmmm doesn't even care about the objectives. He is so massive right now that he just completely goes for the kill every single time, and that's just what he's able to do. There's nobody to stop him from Allegiance. Just way too much to stay in online right now. PBM going to take away that speed buff as much as Screammmmm tried to contest it. I hope PandaCat takes this one too.
Looks like he might do it, Panda. Oh, he didn't do it.
He didn't do it.
You know, PBM needs something to cheer him up today. His Ravens got bodied by my Steelers, so he needed something to put a smile on his face. Fire Giant down to about half HP as NeiruMah the only one in the vicinity. Weekend goes up into the sky trying to help support his support. Finds a 2-man Cataclysm, but even with the sprint, the chase is still on from eUnited. Weekend use that ultimate just to get into the mid lane and find some farm. So United right back onto the objective.
It's just that moment of thought where you can tell that Weekend's thinking about it, and I think that had NeiruMah been in more position to fall, he might have potentially just looked to have that little bit of a knockup going just to stop eUnited temporarily and rely on his own escape to get out, but probably just better off trying to find the farm. Sitting at level 13, just so much of an experience difference between these two teams.
Yeah, PBM's level 16. Think a level 13 Rat's going to do anything to that Ganesh? Not really. And I love this Gauntlet of Thieves as well for PolarBearMike. Not as prevalent as it used to be because it doesn't provide as many protections to your team, but when the enemy team is this far behind, even a small amount of protections spread out across your entire team is very impactful. So an intelligent build from PolarBearMike as eUnited group up on the left-hand side and the mid lane. Scream actually going to continue to split push on the right, so pressure in all 3 lanes for United.
Mike doesn't really need to keep stacking up protections because he already has 10 stacks on his Hide of the Urchin. He rushed that item really early on, recognizing how much pressure eUnited was putting out on the map, and eUnited, as soon as they started grouping and looking for that teamfight aggression, completely steamrolling every single fight.
Mid Phoenix already down to about 3/4 HP from a couple of auto attacks from PandaCat, who not quite full build yet, but has gone for that Aussie. Waiting on what's probably going to be a Titan's Bane in that last item slot. So PolarBearMike finds a little time to himself. Quick meditation. The mid lane, the Ohm. Now eUnited waiting for the minion wave, and they decide they don't need to wait much longer. Scream's on the right-hand side, waiting to blink in. I'm a Monster already used by Oceans without much impact. PandaCat finds one onto NeiruMah, taunted in to the entirety of Allegiance. Is weakened. Scream has to use the Purification Beads because he picked up one all the way in the Titan room as eUnited continues their march of dominance.
And there's just seemingly nobody to stop them. Scream. And the Smite Phoenix not even down yet, and he was still inside that Titan room, just diving the members from ALG, constantly harassing them. eUnited, though, not looking to waste any more time. Scream, he's going to jump into the fountain, maybe end up falling for it. Still a little bit too tanky, a little bit too farmed up, and the Titan can't say the same. It's going to fall pretty soon.
23 minutes and 2 seconds is all it took for eUnited to continue their unbeaten streak. Taco, that's 4 weeks down. Only 1 week to go, and eUnited hasn't dropped a game yet.
eUnited really looking like the #1 team in North America right now, seemingly as though it's only Luminosity really left to try and fight against it. Potentially even Space Station climbing up there.
Taco, I've got good news for you. eUnited and Luminosity are going to play next week. We're going to get to see who the #1 team is in NA, moving on toward the fall split finals. The Gauntlet definitely looks like that's going to be Allegiance's fate. They did have a good performance in Game 1 today, but they had those shortcomings in Game 2. Was that more eUnited being eUnited, or is that Allegiance dropping the ball?
I think it was a little bit of both. The ALG kind of just drafting a little bit too late game oriented, and against a team like eUnited, he's been performing very effectively against those kind of drafts, all split. Not really the direction you want to go.
All right, well, that's doing it for us on the caster set. Throw it over the desk with Tolly and Ron. Tolly, watch out for his hands.
Watch out. Thank you, Aggro.
Help.
His hands, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it, but I don't even know what to say about that last set specifically. eUnited just playing lights out this whole fall split.
eUnited looks like the best team in the world, full stop. That is my take. eUnited looks better than Luminosity, even though Luminosity is still very much top 2 in NA. eUnited looks like #1 in the world.
Well, we'll get to see that matchup actually next week here, but we got a breakdown here in the second game. Every time eUnited plays, I just never know what kind of curveball they're going to throw at us. You were talking about it behind the scenes, how they're either going to play with Artio or against it. You were hesitant about making that call. Why?
I was not sure that eUnited had it in them to kind of leave that open and give it up to NeiruMah, who did play it, and he played fine, but in general, the team did not perform well. eUnited having that Artio on their team in Game 2 was definitely more of in their favor because they've probably played with and against it so many times.
And Benji on the Artio was just doing so much work there in that solo lane every single time. He was proxying between Tier 1 and Tier 2, almost willingly trying to get this bait. Look, there's 4 members here out of Team Allegiance. Couldn't really deal with the bear until the rest of eUnited just bailing out Benji.
I feel like this was the #1 play that describes how eUnited plays as a team. Benji goes very aggressive and gets out completely fine because he knows his limits. PolarBearMike shows up and said, all right, don't be an idiot anymore, I'm here. And then Scream comes up and said, what if I steal the kill? He says, what if I steal this kill? And everybody says, okay, and they rotate his 4, which is absolutely insane.
And Scream just played lights out also on this Camazotz. It seemed to me that he really put the team on his back. Every single opportunity he got to dive the backline, he did not wait.
If I say that eUnited is the best team in the world, and I think that Scream is playing the best on eUnited, does that mean that I'm saying that Lucas Spracklin is the best player in the world? That's a question I have for you, because that is something I never thought I'd ever say. Scream is a very, very talented player, but he's playing way, way insane.
His mechanics are just on point. I've actually had the luxury of playing with him in the ring scene and to just see the remarkable aggressive plays that he's able to do. And then just to see how his transition here in the SPL is really refreshing. But talk to me about game 1 here. Is Weekend's defensive circuit with the Mystical Mail, what was the justification behind that?
Weaken with that Circuit, he does have the true damage on his ultimate. You know, he's still doing damage, and he's got the kind of consistency. If he's tanky, he can last a lot longer, especially while playing Circuit. He's doing this. He's got that Mystical Mail. He did, I'm pretty sure he got a kill with the Mystical Mail, too, on the Scream. But having himself stay in this fight and getting this first blood on the Benji was super important, and it kind of set the pace, and it definitely drew eUnited out.
That's something that Weekend really likes to do a lot from the beginning of his career with CycloneSpin, is kind of sit in that soul lane, really try to bait that player from coming out. And Benji sort of adapted to that. He was able to kind of play passive after that death and kind of slow the pacing down a little bit. But unfortunately for Allegiance, they weren't able to really bounce back, so they're going to lose 2-0 there. But let's kind of dissect the first set or the set beforehand. Luminosity against Vigilant.
Luminosity versus Vigilant went pretty much as expected. Game 1 and Game 2 went a little bit longer. Game 1, they had it in them. I think Vigilant had it in them to win. All they needed, you know, they were pulling out these Gold Fury calls. Luminosity would miss the oracles and just kind of walk away and say, all right, well, we didn't get the vision. It's like not like they have the damage. And then they would rotate his 5 and they would paint it. They would paint the Gold Fury, and it's very expected, but Luminosity was definitely able to do that.
And I wasn't really surprised to see Vigilant kind of make some of these calls, considering that it is indeed Pain Devion out of that support role, just making these kind of shot calls. General Pain, as we all know and love him for. But all the members of Luminosity know Pain inside and out, know the kind of calls that he's capable of making. We're definitely prepared for it seems.
Luminosity, I think most people have sort of figured out their game plan, not in a competitive sense, but people watching at home say they starve you. They basically bleed you out. Luminosity takes your buffs and makes sure literally nothing is on the map, and then when they win a team fight, they can take the objectives that you can't get in a 5v5.
But in the second game, there was no such thing as Luminosity starving you out. They were just winning that game so convincingly full force.
Yeah, they definitely had that in them to do that, and I think the only reason they didn't do that Game 1 is those sneak Gold Furies, and like I was saying, if Vigilant Gatekeepers, they pull that out, that's like pretty much the only opportunity they'd have to beat Luminosity.
Well, you predicted it, 2-0 for Luminosity and 2-0 for eUnited.
Super difficult.
You know, not many people like you, but they will like your predictions for the fantasy points there. But let's take a look at the Thursday schedule coming up here for week number 5 of the SPL. It's going to be the last week of SPL competition before we transition into the Thursday games here. But let's look at the standings rather after this first week 4 here.
Yeah, when we look at the standings, we can definitely see the 1 and the 2, as we've been talking about for the past few weeks. Luminosity, eUnited. Luminosity up there, 16 points. eUnited, 15 points. Still undefeated, but eUnited is definitely looking like the best team and very consistent.
Well, something's going to break, because we're going to look at this Thursday schedule here. Between these two teams, Luminosity and eUnited will face off later on, but not on Thursday specifically. It's going to be Elevate against Obey, Rival against Burrito, Vigilance against eUnited, and Team Allegiance against Trifecta.
When I see this schedule, I see Allegiance versus Trifecta is an interesting one to me, because Trifecta is they're 4th right now, and Allegiance is playing, I'm pretty sure they're at 7th, what we just saw on the standings. And that's Allegiance's move to say, okay, we've seen Trifecta, you know, it's the last week, it's time for us to step it up.
It's going to be an interesting road for the Thursday week 5 games, but this is also going to be the road towards Gauntlet, Super Regionals, and HRX. You too can all join us here if you go to hi-rezexpo.com and pick up your tickets now.
when you see eUnited and Lucas Bracklin win Worlds, apparently, because that's just like going to happen.
I'll be honestly shocked if that were to happen. Despite how well they're playing right now, the competition in both North America and Europe is just so fierce. But you two at home can get in on some of the action here. Log on to Smite now, get your 3 first wins of the day for that free Enigma chest.
On the left, we, as we saw earlier, still here, same graphic. We have a Wheelix on the left, Chalk is on the right. On the left, another Lucas Bracklin god.
How are you still on the caster?
Help me, I can't stop this. I'm poisoned.
All right, on behalf of all the other casters, production, admins as well, thank you guys so much for watching Sunday, end of week 4 SPL. Stay tuned now for tomorrow. We're going to have some more console action at 11 a.m. Eastern.